This is a Buc-ee's, or if you'd like to pronounce it by its legal name, Buc-ee's. For the uninitiated, Buc-ee's is an American chain of travel stops that have kind of gained a cult-like following over the last few years. It started in Texas and kind of just spread across the whole South. They're known for having pretty good food, this beaver mascot, having just an absurd amount of gas pumps, like 80 to 120 per location. And then apparently having pretty decently good clean bathrooms, which as someone who is very afraid of just public bathrooms in general, I hope is true the one day that I do visit this place. Point is that this place is very beloved, and they have definitely sold me on the fantasy of Buc-ee's. It is unfortunately on my bucket list of things that I eventually want to do once I get the means to travel. I say unfortunately because I understand there's kind of a quiet horror in the fact that I put so much value in bucket listing something that definitely exists purely to sell me something. Realistically, Buc-ee's represents things that I deeply dislike, that being a very car-dependent culture of excess, just a huge waste of space, and giant, grave pavement in what would otherwise be a beautiful, very geographically wonderful place. But I really want to try one of those chicken sandwiches. I wish that I could just pick something that's historically cool, or some kind of monument or something for my bucket list. Say the Washington Monument. Not too shabby, Mr. Washington. But realistically, I'm a person that is very fueled by very stupid and silly things, and the things that I really want to see in life are very silly and stupid. So I will very quickly list them. The best Pro Shops pyramid is the pinnacle of modern mankind. Are you telling me I can stay in a hotel built inside the 9th wonder of the world? You have sold me. Alien Jerky is a little bit less known, but it's on my way from where I am to Las Vegas, and all my friends rave about it, and there's little aliens at the front, and I just want to try some of that jerky. I've never had it. Everyone talks about it like it's great. Speaking of Vegas, I want to see the Las Vegas Sphere. I want to see mankind's most disgusting creation. I truly am disgusted by the Sphere, but I'm a little bit morbidly curious. But realistically, if I wanted to go to Vegas, I want to see some of their art museums or their just art shows, things like that. Omega Mart would be really cool to see. I want to go to Yellowstone and see the bison over there. I want to see bison because they're to me, the true American animal. I want to see them, in real life, as close as I'm allowed to be, because they are kind of big and scary. I want to go see these classic Filthy Frank locations. I want to see this place. And I would want to go to Japan at some point and try just the convenience stores. Even though I think they're probably overhyped, I do really want to try a Family Mart chicken. And Iceland seems pretty cool. I think geographically it looks beautiful. I would want to see that at some point. Point is that people are weird, and we're all weird little creatures that create weird things, like these locations, and then we kind of crave the experience of seeing said weird things. Part of a lived experience is actually experiencing those things that you've heard about from other people. And you can't ever get that experience just from reading a tabloid, reading a paper, or, word of mouth. You never truly get that experience, the qualia, or whatever you want to call it. So let's kind of take that idea, roll it up in our little D&D sized baggie, and see what we can do to add this into our world building. So what do we actually take from what I've been rambling about all this time and putting it into our D&D world building? It's about making your world feel more lived in by creating kind of silly and serious points of interest for your players to interact with. It's about making travel mean something more than just a grand adventure or a grand quest. It's about giving characters in your world something to travel for. Something even small can be meaningful to a lot of people. So take that little map that you have in whatever D&D map program that you have, or the hand-drawn one that you have, or the one you made with rice, and just start dotting that map with interesting little locations. So why is this important? I kind of just went over it, but to go over it in more detail, it's about giving yourself more ammunition so that you can have more interesting details to give to your players in your day-to-day play. By adding these interesting locations and reasons to go to those locations, you give your NPCs, your PCs, something to latch onto the world no matter how small it could be. Because what I think kind of humanizes and makes your characters more relatable is having these very small things that they care about rather than the very overarching story that you have going on. My overarching goal in life is to, survive and hopefully be able to live a good life, have built, like, you know, buy a house, whatever, despite how difficult that might be in this day and age. But that's not necessarily the very interesting thing. The interesting thing that keeps me going is the fact that hopefully one day I can afford to fly out to Japan and have myself a strawberry sandwich, or go to London and have Nando's for the first time. It's really silly, but it keeps me going, and I think that when I hear that kind of stuff from people, it makes them a little bit more interesting than just, here's my big goal. You can make your NPCs feel a little bit more lively by having them dream of these small things. Perhaps they have always existed as like a tavern keep, but they always dreamed of exploring, and they have these little things that they want to go and experience in the world, but haven't had the chance to do so. Perhaps it's like an NPC that got stuck with their family farm, and they've always dreamed of going out, so they work kind of in hopes that they can travel out one of these days. Your NPCs hope to experience even just a small percentage of the things they've set out for themselves, even if it's something that's on a silly little bucket list for them. And I have a feeling if your players are very attached to certain NPCs, if that NPC starts talking about how they've always wanted to see the lights in the capital, or they wanted to go to this small town because they heard they have great apple pies, I bet your players are going to want to do something to help that NPC achieve that very small goal. Even if it's silly, they want to do it because that's something that you would want to do for people that you like. Having these locations is also just a great opportunity to characterize your players. If your players need a little bit more character depth to them, you dot the map with these locations, and then you have your players pick a few that your characters have always wanted to go to, but like maybe they won't tell people, or maybe they're very actively telling people. And the locations that they go to kind of characterize them, maybe give them a little bit of backstory. It just gives them a little bit more to work with when you have a world that's more fleshed out like this. You could give your players small goals in their grand campaign, where perhaps it's like, I want to go to where my parents met, or I want to go to the zoo in said city, I want to try this food, I want to do this activity in this city, you know? I can definitely see a world where this does pull away from the grand scheme of your story, but I do think it is a good opportunity to actually world build if done right and if done carefully. I think my favorite example of this kind of like world building in media is from Avatar. Within the first few episodes, you see Aang wants to go to Kyoshi Village because he wants to go ride the elephant koi. There are these elephant koi that exist here, it's a fun activity, but the main thing is that it's characterizing Aang because it shows that he's still that kid who probably, in his head, probably just like 2 weeks ago, he just ran away and froze himself in ice. He's still a kid trying to escape all of his responsibility. I think things like this show who characters really are in that particular moment in the story. Anyways, let's start throwing things at this board. With zero research here, I'm gonna say that people travel for roughly 4 things. The 4 things are people travel for sights, people travel for food, people travel to do activities, or people travel to learn about some kind of history or culture. Some areas might have a reason to do, you know, just 1 or 2 of these things. In some areas, maybe like a major capital city in your setting could have all 4. And of course, I know there's other reasons people travel. I'm trying to keep it pretty simple for this. Sightseeing is probably the easiest one for a lot of people to get behind. It's the easiest one to just register like on a base level. I never was a big fan of sightseeing as a kid, so this one's actually a little bit hard for me. But I think it's pretty easy to implement into your games. Say a specific capital city has a certain light display. Perhaps just a certain area has just like a beautiful waterfall. Or maybe there's a specific area in the whole world where double rainbows are like a constant occurrence, and so if you go there, you're gonna see one. It's fantastic. You don't see it anywhere else. Or you can like bump it up because it's like a fantasy setting. Maybe perhaps in this area there's like bioluminescent some kind of creature in the air that turns the air a different color during a full moon. Food is one that I definitely understand. I travel for food when I get the chance. But you can also just do a lot of things with food. You can make kind of like gimmick areas, and also I've talked about in my food and world building video, you can talk about these like regional styles and how they formed. A lot of the times it's through struggle, or like these cultures have foods because of struggle. I think that's a great way to explore things, and also you can just do fun like gimmicky foods. You can do like stylized food. Think of like Chicago like deep dish pizza, right? Or think like a, you know, Cajun like shrimp boil. Those are all very specific styles, you know, like a, you know, an authentic Italian pizza. Like those kind of things you can really do to sell areas of your world. And also maybe characters have just been like, oh, I've heard of this food and I really want to try it and I want to go there. And even though that's a very weak bond, I would say, it is a bond nonetheless. And of course, you could spice it up. I don't know, make it like you go to a tavern and they're well known for having an ale that makes you see your ancestors. I don't know, play with it. You could do something a little bit more special than just having like a giant apple pie. Although a giant apple pie would be fun. And then like activities, people travel to do little activities. It could be, think of like zip lining, things like that. You go to a fantasy world, what would kind of like really inspire people of that age? It could be a hot balloon ride. I feel like that would be really exciting for people. Maybe it's having like animal cafes with unique animals. It could be like little baby owlbear cafes, or you can just do pigs. Pigs are cool. Or like you're riding a drake around the city, riding an axe beak. Those kind of things. That could be something that you could do to have an activity. Or you could do a little bit more like, hey, a bard's doing a theater show and they're doing illusions with their music, or a sorcerer is doing like kind of like parlor tricks. And then think like the last one is like cultural landmarks or historical like areas. So these ones you could have, of course, like if you have a lot of deities in your world, you can have certain churches that are very important to those people. So if you're playing a cleric, they can be really drawn to this particular church. Like they gotta do some kind of journey to get there. If it's a historical landmark, you could just do, statues of the old kings, or like images of the old heroes, or maybe there's like a sword propped up somewhere in a museum that was wielded by the hero, something of that nature. One of my favorite examples of this is just like the Argonath in, I don't know if I said that right, in Lord of the Rings, when they pass through that river and there's just these two beautiful statues. That is so cool. Point is, I just want my players, if they go to like a tavern keep, they have something a little bit more interesting to talk to with the tavern keep, rather than just the happenings of the town, or you got any information on the big bad. I would like for the tavern keep to be like, hey, are you guys here for the hot dog eating competition? And then for that NPC or that tavern keep to be like, hey, by the way, if you eat our hot dogs and then drink our wine, it messes with your perception of color for a day. And then if you go see the firework festival afterwards, it will blow your mind. That is interesting to me. It feels like a local custom, like something that you can only participate in that area. Or if like your players are traveling down the road and they meet another traveling, trader or just like another adventurer who's on the road, and they ask him where he's going. He's like, I'm gonna go down that town. I heard they have a tavern where everyone does backflips if you say secret words to them. I'm gonna find out what the password is, and I'm gonna make people do some backflips. That's fun, that's interesting, that seems like a weird little thing, but I don't know, that just makes the world feel more alive to me. Or perhaps like he just wants to go somewhere, like he heard there's a baker who makes the world's largest sweet roll and he's convinced he can tackle it himself. I think of course this can kind of end up pulling away a little bit from like an epic adventure or like an epic fantasy thing, but I do think that in order to have like this balance of feeling a world where your players can explore, you gotta consider having these little silly things to kind of flesh out your world, make it feel more lived in. Like people are weird, they're gonna do little weird things. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to me yap again. Comment below if you've ever been to Buc-ee's, and also, I don't know, put something like a Buc-ee's inside of your world. I don't know, there's a place that does freaking owlbear plushes or something. Anyways, just let me know what you guys think. Thank you for hearing me yap again. You have a great day.